Hello, and welcome to another episode of Roots and Hoots, a podcast project produced by the Legacy of Hope Foundation. Since 2020, we have been gathering, laughing, learning hard truths, and sharing in community conversations with Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. Each episode, we learn something new, and we're excited to be sharing this journey with you. Roots and Hoots is about connecting with and celebrating Indigenous peoples' contributions to their fields of study, work, and cultures. We also speak with allies who share how they are furthering the work of reconciliation in Canada. To learn more about the Legacy of Hope Foundation and the work that we do, please visit legacyofhope.ca.
On this week's episode of Roots and Hoots, host Gordon Spence is joined by his friend, Cree actor and former chief of Fox Lake Cree Nation, Michael Lawrenchuk. Michael discusses the road that led to his impressive acting career and how it continues to save and heal him. In 2014, Michael became a fellow of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London and is a member of the Actors Union ACTRA, from whom he is set to receive the Vic Cowie Award in 2024. Michael has been involved in countless plays and TV and film projects such as Indian Horse, based on the book written by the late great Richard Wagamese. Their conversation spans decades, and Michael and Gordon take us on a journey to their homeland of Northern Manitoba and the eternal nature of storytelling. Please enjoy this special episode of Roots and Hoots.
Okay, well, welcome to this podcast of Roots and Hoots. Hello, everybody. My name is Gordon Spence, and my guest today is Mike Lawrenchuk. Mike's an actor. He's from Gillum, Manitoba, so he's here to join us to talk about his life. Mike, hello, welcome. Dante.
Oh, Dante, thank you for having me. Now, when your name is Roots and Hoots, what particular kind of roots are you hooting?
Well, it was originally supposed to be. It's kind of a long story. How I came up with that name was, our boss Teresa asked me to come up with some names and suggestions for this podcast, and
It's a good name.
yeah, and ended up I came up with 10 names, and this was the kind of threw this name in at the last, as the last one, and it ended up getting selected. And it was originally supposed to be, roots about traditional in native culture, right?
Yeah.
And the hoots part was not about smoking anything. It was more about, how it's about humor, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, putting humor into the podcast, and that's what we try to do. Try to make it fun. And originally, it was supposed to, we'd ask our guests to come up with a joke, but that didn't turn out too well. So some of those guys are not jokers. So
Yeah, none of the jokes I know are should be put on air. I can tell you that.
I'm sure. Okay. All right, Like I know you're a funny guy. You got lots of jokes, I'm sure. Yeah. Anyways, why don't you just talk about a little bit about your family background and where you come from, and
Okay. Yeah. Let me see. I come from a little tiny village called Gillum, which is no longer there. And that little village of Gillum is where my grandparents and their peers and a lot of other Indians that worked on the CN lived. And there was probably 200 people in that village. And in that village, the indigenous people that lived there, they worked the rails and they did their trapping and their fishing and their hunting. So it was a good blend of both people's needs, the needs for CN to have workers and the needs for Fox Lake indigenous people to do their traditional activities. So that's what I was born in. That's what I grew up in until Hydro came, and I was raised by my granny and my grandpa. Gladys and Willie Moose. Never knew my Ukrainian grandpa. That's where my name comes from, Lawrenchuk.
Yep.
He died in 1939, and my mother had me in Winnipeg, but she didn't text. There was no text back then. She telegraphed my grandmother, telling my granny that the Catholic nuns were coming to take me away.
Yeah.
This was a few days old. So my grandma hopped a train, my mom hopped a train, and then my mom handed me over to my granny in the PA.
Yeah.
And then she took me home and they raised me.
That's where they went to have give birth, right? And back in the
Winnipeg.
day, they left the community to go to the PA.
Yeah. But I was born in Winnipeg.
Yes. Yeah.
And the nuns were coming to get me. So that
Okay.
didn't happen. So I was pretty lucky. And my granny and my grandpa, they traditional people. Cree is their language, and Cree is my first language. English is my second language. So I grew up speaking Cree in my young years. Um, grew up on a trap line with my granny and grandpa when they went out for months at a time
Yeah.
until I had to go to school, grade
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
in Gillum. And Gillum now is the major. It's a hydro capital of Manitoba. They've got 4 dams up there, and that's a story in itself. What hydro did to us, and you know that. You know
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get to that. And like I wanted to talk about your community and wanted to ask you Gillum was a village, and it was mostly a non-native village, and then people started moving in there, and the indigenous people, First Nations, Crees mostly, and then Fox Lake, your band came out of there. But where did most of these people weren't originally from Gillum, right? Or Fox Lake, they were from different.
Well, we were originally from Fox Lake, which is just south of Gillum, but we used that Kettle River and the Kettle where the Kettle River went into the Nelson. We used that.
Right,
And we used to visit Split Lakers at where Kiosk Dam is now, just east of that. We
right,
used to have
yeah,
traditional gatherings there, so
yeah,
we were in the area all the time. That's where we headed to when we left York Factory, the fort.
right,
Shamattawa
yes,
people went up to their river, right?
yeah,
We went up
Case
the Fox
River,
to that
yeah,
area, right? So we've
yeah,
always been in that general area. And then
right,
when the railway came, we headed to Gillum and made it sort of our semi-permanent residence so that we could have jobs.
right, yeah,
Yeah, and the thing too is Fox Lake, Shamattawa, Split Lake, York Factory. All of us have interacted with non-Indigenous people for hundreds of years because of York Factory,
right,
right?
yep,
So we were quite familiar with interacting and working, that kind of stuff. So it was just a natural fit for Fox Lake.
yep. You were raised by your grandparents. You speak Cree and learned a bit about the culture or a lot
Oh yeah, I
about
learned
the.
lots. I learned
Yeah,
lots about my
yeah.
my culture.
You
I
spent some time on a trap line.
Oh yeah, yeah. Don't remember much of it. My sister Lorna, she's really my auntie, but my sister Lorna tells me of the times when we'd be on a trap line. I'd be wrapped up in a little blanket in a tent, and while they went out doing their stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time. It was a very good time.
For people who don't know what a trap line is, it's not. When you say trap line, it kind of has a misconception. Tell us, describe what a trap line is.
Okay, well, uh, I'll give you a little more history than what you asked there. Indigenous people have always lived off the land. It doesn't matter where you are on this continent, on Turtle Island. We've always lived off the land. So when Hudson Bay came to York Factory, they demanded furs. They wanted furs. So we went out trapping furs, and we traded that furs for goods, right? And we had areas of territory that we trapped on, specific areas that were for the families and the clans that we knew that belonged to other people or belonged to us. There was that knowledge about traditional territory that's been that we shared since the beginning of time for us, right? But then in 1929, Canada transferred Crown land over to Manitoba,
Right,
and then all the reserves that were in Manitoba, in that instant, became surrounded by a sea of provincial land.
right,
And the First Nations that had federal treaties could not step foot onto provincial land. So one of the things that the province did was they identified areas where people trapped, and they codified them into defined areas that are on a map now, and those areas on the map are called trap lines.
mm-hmm,
So there's a number of trap lines on on the map that stem from the Natural Resource Transfer Act,
Yeah.
and individual people are given the trap lines to use.
It's an area, right? It's
Yeah,
not
it's an area,
not
it's
a
an area of
line per
land
se. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
water, right?
Could be a
Uh,
lake or, surrounding a couple of
yeah,
lakes.
yeah, that people use to trap, and it's really interesting because right now people are confusing having a trap line as owning the property that the line is on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And giving people heck when they would come and use that trap line.
that's
When a
right.
long time ago, people would just ask the people that trapped in that area, "Can I trap in this area?" And they would say, "Yeah." Right.
Yeah.
So the trap line system itself is an artificial uh, um, territorial division that divides First Nations people.
Yeah. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about of the hydro and how it's affected people in your community, and the impact it's had on the environment. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, Manitoba Hydro has always known about the power capability of the Nelson River. They've always known that since the turn of the last century, right? Except they didn't have the technology to export that power from the north to the south, right? It was
Right.
only when Russia developed the long distance transmission lines that they found it feasible to go and do those lines. So they made dams in Grand Rapids. They made dam at Kelsey so that Inco would do the mining, and then they went further. They went further northeast along the Nelson River and identified Gillum as a good spot to put the Kettle Dam because Gillum was 5 miles away. And basically, when the dams were put on our territory, First Nations were still not human beings. We were wards of the state. We did not have a say in what we could do. Right? We were treated as children.
Yeah.
We had to grandparents and that had to sign passes to leave the res and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So and the thing too in Gillum is we weren't given our reserve yet when we left when we broke away from York Factory. um, we we applied for a reserve and we didn't get a reserve status till 1947, and then we immediately applied for a reserve around the Gillum area, and that never happened. And it's because of the knowledge of the potential hydropower that was there. Canada funded the transmission line, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So it was a collective effort from two colonial governments to extract power from indigenous land, and they never gave us a reserve reserve land until 1983. Okay, so what happened was, as soon as the Local Government District Act was created in 1966, so that Hydro and the province could create a town so they could start building the dam, all of the Fox Lakers and all the Indians in that territory were instantly called squatters. We were made squatters.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
So they did everything they could to get rid of us.
Right.
Everything they could to get rid of us.
Yeah.
And they turned our environment upside down. They tore up the land. They dirtied the waters. They flooded areas. Right. The Kettle Forebay is 100 feet deep, and it's got our old villages and our old graveyards under that water.
Wow.
Right. So that's what they did to the land is they made it unusable for us. But the reason we are where we are today is that thinking that got us, that they used to take the land away. If they would have said, okay, we're going to go to these Indians here, we're going to take away their way of living, right, which is trapping and hunting and working the CN, and because we're going to build dams on their territory, we're going to teach them how to make a new life from the dams we're building. That transition would have been smooth, but they didn't do that. Therefore, 60 years after the dams have been made, our community is extremely dysfunctional. extremely dysfunctional. And the reason it's extremely dysfunctional is the people that are young there now and the people whose parents are there have lost all connection with the people that grew up there and could speak Cree and knew their traditions, right?
Yeah.
So they've been cut free and have been put into a dysfunctional community, and they think that the poverty that Fox Lake lives in there is normal. Hydro lives in $300,000-$400,000 houses. We live in trailers,
Right.
right? And we think that's normal.
Yeah. Acceptable.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
That's why it's important for us to travel. You know, I'll give you an example. When I went to my first undergrad at the London Theatre School in England, when I got there, the biggest surprise when I got there was everybody liked me. Everybody wanted to be my friend. Everybody wanted to take me home to their parents and have supper. Nobody wanted to kill me.
Why?
Because I was because I am an Indian, I thought they would be treating me the same way that they treat us here in Canada.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You went to university and you majored in psychology, and then you switched to English.
I switched
Tell
to
us a
theater.
talk a little bit about your university. And
I went to university, and I went the same time as Walter, Chief Walter Spence. We went together. He was doing social work, and I was doing psychology.
he's the chief of
He's the former
your
chief.
band, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's former chief. Yeah.
He was chief for 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went there to be to study psychology because I wanted to find a way of helping people like me that were struggling. Yeah. That's why I went to take psychology, to help people. And then I took 3 years of psychology, and then I was also incredibly shy, like deathly shy. People thought I was stuck up. I was so shy and scared to talk, you know? And that was driven into us too when we were young, right? We couldn't talk. They just beat us up if we tried to talk. And so I had decided to take a theater course from the Black Hole Theater at the University of Manitoba to help with my communication skills.
Yeah.
And then when I went there, theater bit me in the bum.
You got the bug.
And it's never let go, because
Yeah.
the nature of theater and theater training as an actor is self-discovery. You have to know who you are if you're going to portray other people, right?
Yeah.
So it allowed me to heal. It allowed me to dig out my all my my anger and my hate and all this kind of stuff, because the nature of theater too is the pulling off of masks, false masks that you use to face society, right? So that's why I switched, because I was the one that needed healing, and this for me was my journey. And then after that I switched to a theater major. I went to my theater advisor, and I said, I'm switching majors. And he said, if you switch majors, we're going to not fund you. I said, fuck you, and I switched majors. And then I moved, and then I went to University of Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And that's where they have the honors degree program. That's what I finished there.
Yeah.
Theater is an incredible tool that we need to put into our schools for young people to explore their own place in where they are.
Right.
It's a safe place to do that.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we do when we're in rehearsals or we're in theater exercises, everybody there knows that space we're in is a sacred place. It's not sacred because the place is sacred. It's sacred because we come in and say that's a sacred place.
Yeah.
Whatever a person says there, it's going to be safe for that person to say there, right? So it you know, it's like it's almost like a what do they call those, healing circles?
Yes.
But it's with acting, right? Where we act things out, and we find things about ourselves or other people. So it's an incredible tool to use to find out who you are individually. So that's what I did.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Ayaya songs are about our histories. Ayaya is an Inuit-owned firm that tells our stories in many languages across Canada. They are experts in publishing children's books, usually in syllabics, and they do large multi-language projects like the reports of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Commission. If you need help getting your stories into classrooms or homes in Cree, Inuktitut, or other Indigenous languages, check them out at ayaya.ca. That's ayaya.ca. Ayaya is a proud sponsor of the Roots and Hoots podcast.
Yeah, you see now more emerging stars like Indigenous people in movies now, as opposed to before, where we had foreigners playing Indigenous people. Now there seems to be like an increasing number of real Indigenous actors on the screen, such as yourself.
The beautiful thing about theater is it's born from storytelling, right? It's born from storytelling. And as far as I know, storytelling is key to every people in the world from the beginning of time. When they lit a fire, they sat around it and told stories. And we, as Indigenous people, did the same thing. What's different is because you're in a different environment, your stories are different. Your stories relate to how you relate and how you survive in the environment you're in, right? So Indigenous storytelling is it's the foundation for Indigenous theater. Indigenous theater is a term that you have to be careful when you use it. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're Indigenous and you go to theater, you're an Indigenous artist, right? But that doesn't make you a practitioner of Indigenous theater.
Okay.
In order to practice Indigenous theater, you have to dig deep into who we are as a people and start bringing those stories out, or using those stories in your acting and your writing. That's Indigenous theater. Just because you're an Indian and you go acting doesn't mean you're doing Indigenous theater. You're doing just theater, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we need to do is we need to have our artists dig deep into who we are as Indigenous people. And even what we see a lot of now is we see a lot of Indigenous artists bringing out the pain that we've gone through in the stories, right? They're bringing out that pain so they can share the pain with other people and say, listen, I survived this, you can survive it. And this is what they've done. And we do it too, to witness it, so that people can witness what happened, right? They don't have to, the people that are witnessing it, they don't need to do anything. They just need to witness it, because we need to say, this is what you guys did to us. And I'm not saying it for you guys to feel guilty. I'm just saying it because that's what I lived through and I survived.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you forget this is what you guys did to us.
Yeah.
Now, once we get there, right, we can dig deeper, and start telling our grandparents stories about how they lived in the world, about telling their worldview, right? About how everything is alive, everything has a spirit, right? We start bringing that into the fore, then we'll be doing really good Indigenous theater. We'll be spreading to the world who we are and who we've always been, and our connection to the land. That's why it's important for us to do that. And the young people that are doing theater and film today, it's fantastic. It's fantastic that they're doing that. But the same way that we stood on the shoulders of our parents and our grandparents to get to where we are, people my age, we kicked a lot of doors so that they could be where they are, right?
Yeah. When you get into a role, what do you have to do? What do you do to prepare for the role? And once you finish the film, how does it feel like, removing yourself from that role?
Yeah, well, the first thing that we'll talk about is what does playing a role or being a character mean, right? What does that actually mean? Because you can't be that character. You can't. Because if you did, you'd go to play that character and you'd never come back to who you are, right? So what theater training does is it allows you to express the deepest and darkest emotions and the happiest emotions. It allows your body to go there and express it, verbally or physically, right? So the question that every actor uses to get into a role is, if I was in that situation and that was happening to me, how would I react? What would I do? right? That's the starting point on the stuff that the role is sort of bringing out of you.
But wouldn't that change the dynamics of the role? Like, I mean, if you say, well, this is what I would do, would that character do that? Yeah, like, you mean, you know
Well,
what I mean?
that's what you give. That's what you give to the director, right? That's what you
Yeah.
give to the director, and the director will say, "Well, let's try it this way." So you'd explore another way that you might behave if you got that right. But it always goes back to you being honest with how you'd behave and react.
Yeah.
Right. I'll give you an example. When I was teaching at U of W, some of the kids would come straight from grade 12 and say, "I've learned all my lines. I've learned all my lines. I know how I'm going to say them for a scene, right?"
Yeah.
And then I say, "Oh, okay. Acting is about reacting. So if you know how you're going to say your lines, you're not acting anymore, right? Because you're not reacting to what the character you're acting with is telling you. So if your character is saying to you, 'I don't love you anymore,' how do you honestly react to that if you've already memorized your lines and know how to say it, right? You have to let the words that are being said by the other actor go right into your body, right into your mind. So one of the exercises I did was I would have a young lady stand on one side and a young man stand on the other side of the theater, and I whisper in their ears. I whisper to the guy. I say, "Listen, when she comes up to you, I want you to tell her that you love her and you want to marry her, and you're so happy to have met her." Okay. I said, "But that's what I want you to say to this actor." So I go to the young lady and I say, "Okay, I want you to say to him when you meet him, 'I don't want to go with you anymore. I don't love you. I want to go away.'" So we've got these two contrasting views that they have to react honestly to, right? So the basis of acting, the basis of storytelling, is telling the truth, and you can't tell the truth unless you react to what's in front of you. So when I do a role, I imagine. I read the script a number of times, right? And I say, okay, this is happening. This is who this guy is according to the playwright or according to the screenwriter. This is who this guy is, right? This is his history. And with some of the roles, I don't have to dig too far, because the Indian role that I'm playing, the things that have happened to this person have in some way happened to all of us, right? So I don't have to dig too far to do that. So this person, if he's an Indian, he's got relatives that drink, that have been to prison, that have been to residential school. That's a dark side of that, right?
Mhm.
So I know that already. So I know how to react to that when it comes in the play, right,
Yeah.
or in the film, and it's incredibly difficult when you start touching the foundation of the things that caused us pain, right? When we were doing Indian Horse, we cried so much together because of the story we were telling. We cried
Yeah.
because that's an honest reaction to what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So when you leave that role, you take it with you, right? But you've let it go because you've already experienced the actions that need to be done to say that role, to say that, right? It's like being cathartic, right?
So when you have you're reading a script and there's lines there that you're supposed to say as a character, the way I understand is you don't necessarily follow those lines word for word.
Oh, you do. You do.
You do?
Oh, yeah, you do.
But you said a reaction, an honest reaction. You're talking about an
Yeah,
honest reaction.
I'm talking about an honest physical reaction. I'm not talking about a verbal reaction. You have to
Okay.
figure out how to make a physical reaction at the same time using those words.
Okay.
If someone comes and hurts you, right, and they say, "How are you feeling?" and you say, "It's okay," right? That doesn't take away from the hurt you're feeling. It adds stuff to the line, right?
Right.
Like, why are you saying it's okay to this person that's asking you that, right? Those are the questions you ask as an actor.
Yeah. You said you studied in England theater some time ago, and I met you once on we were traveling together. We just happened to bump into each other on the plane somewhere between, I think, Toronto and
And
Winnipeg,
here and there.
wherever. But you mentioned that you just got back, or you're on your way to England to study some theater acting. Tell us a little bit about your time there and what your experience was like in England.
Well, the reason I first went to the London Theatre School, that was my first time there, right? In England. The reason I went there is the nature of how theater is taught, right? In North America, we use what's called the method style of teaching, right? Where you go and you do and you feel exactly what you go and do what the character did, so you can get a sense of what's going on inside, right? You get a sense inside. Over in England, now this is just putting it in broad strokes here. Over there, you learn from the outside. You do the actions of the character, and you learn the whys of it as you're working. So I needed to learn from the outside because I was already shy and I already knew my feelings, but I didn't know how to express them as an actor, right? So I went there to do that. And then I went again and I went to the University of Exeter and I studied Shakespeare, staging Shakespeare. I went there. And the third time I went to the Globe Theatre in London, and I'm a fellow of the Globe Theatre, 2014 fellow of the Globe Theatre in London.
Yeah.
So Shakespeare's fantastic.
Yeah. You enjoy doing
Oh
Shakespeare?
yeah.
Yeah. What's a favorite line that comes to you from Shakespeare?
Well, I'll quote the scene a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can quote lines for you, but I want to quote
Sure.
the scene.
Yeah.
In King Lear is about to give away all his land to his daughters, and he thinks he's going to give most of his land to his youngest daughter, right? But it doesn't turn out. But he's meeting other nobles that come to him, and these two nobles meet, and one talks to Edgar, I think it was, and says, "Is this your son?" And he's got this man has two sons. He's got a Edmund and Edgar, and one of them is a bastard son. Edmund is a bastard son. Okay, so the guy goes up to him and says, talking about Edmund, says, "Is this your son, the bastard son?" And the guy says, "So his mother keeps telling me." Shakespeare's pretty funny sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The language that he uses is very earthy, right? It's very earthy. It's very base. It's like when we go listen to our elders tell stories.
Yeah.
You know, look at Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
It's about these two young people that fall in love and then kill themselves. They're so young. They haven't been able to factor in the fact that there's this big, beautiful life. But for young people, it's either do it now or I'm never going to do it. Right.
Wow.
And yeah, that's what it is. It's about these two young people.
I didn't know that about Romeo and Juliet. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
They're not allowed to be together because their parents don't want them together. So they run away. That's what young people do.
That's such a, I don't want to say common, but that happens more often than
It is common. It is common.
Yeah.
But Shakespeare writes about it.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Ayaya songs are about our histories. Ayaya is an Inuit-owned firm that tells our stories in many languages across Canada. They are experts in publishing children's books, usually in syllabics, and they do large multi-language projects like the reports of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Commission. If you need help getting your stories into classrooms or homes in Cree, Inuktitut, or other Indigenous languages, check them out at ayaya.ca. That's ayaya.ca. Ayaya is a proud sponsor of the Roots and Hoots podcast.
When you were studying theater in London, England, or wherever it was, London it was, right? Was it London?
One was London and one was Exeter.
Right. Okay. Were there other Indigenous people there with you, or
No, that was it.
you're the
That
only
was it.
one?
Yeah.
Okay. So no other that you're aware of, other Indigenous people go there
Well,
or
they
have
may
gone.
have, right? They may have. I don't know anymore, but I know that when I went, I was it.
You have previously said that theater is an important aspect of Native life because we are storytellers. Um, in what ways has theater impacted your life and helped you be who you are?
Well, theater saved my life because it allowed me to deal with um, um, dysfunctions in myself. It allowed me to do that. That's not to say that I've tackled those dysfunctions once I identify them, that I've tackled them properly, right? Or the way they should have been in a line. But I know I identify them, and I try to learn from them, right? So yeah, theater. I probably would have been dead if I didn't do theater.
You're known for your role as Fred Kelly in the film Indian Horse, based on the book of the same name, written by Richard Wagamese. Now, is it true that Richard was supposed to play the role of Fred Kelly? And how did this all come about, this Indian Horse, Vic?
Yeah, Richard was supposed to play the role. The role was his to play. And then when he passed, the auditions went out, right? And took me about 3 or 4 auditions to get it,
Yeah.
to get what they wanted.
Mhm.
And when I got word that that it was me that got it, and when I got word that it was Richard that was supposed to play the role, I felt a really deep humbleness, right? That this guy who lived this particular way and told this story was going to tell the story himself in this movie, right? So I felt really humble, and the key for me, the key, what they liked when I did my audition and when I was doing the scenes is I tried to make Fred Kelly a really nice man. You know, you and I, we know them in our culture, right? We know people that are really nice. We also know that those really nice people have lived a hard life. We also know that, right?
Yeah.
So the way I made Fred Kelly was, even though all this stuff happened, it didn't beat him. It didn't defeat him. He didn't become bitter, right? So that's how I played him, and that's what they wanted.
Yeah. Do you think that, like, what you describe him, it didn't defeat him, is what you said, and what allowed him to, be a happy person? Was it family?
My elder, he passed away a long time ago. His name was Henry Shingoose Rattlesnake,
Yeah.
and my elder told me one time. He says, "Mike, if you're not selfish, you're no good to anybody." Now, I didn't know what he meant by selfish. I took selfish to mean this little small word where you're grabbing everything, right? But
Right.
that's not what he meant. What he meant was, if you're not good to yourself and do things that are good for you,
Mhm.
you're not good to anybody.
Right.
So once you start doing good things to yourself, you will appreciate and love your family more. But you got to do it to yourself.
Awesome words. You were chief of your community of Fox Lake Cree Nation in Northern Manitoba. Was this something you always wanted to do, or how did you become chief, and how long were you there for?
Um, I never thought about being a chief, ever, ever. 1997, I went up north in December, I think, to talk to the elders and talk to the chiefs that was there, talk to the people. And I want to talk to them about me doing a documentary on surviving hydro, right? So I did my pitch to the elders and to council and stuff like that. And at that time, our negotiator that was working for us was having a meeting, and our elders were there speaking Cree, right? And Ivan was translating, right? And I asked the elders, I said, can I translate? because Ivan was missing out really important parts, right?
Yeah.
That he took for granted, right? He took those for granted. He thinks everybody knows that. So when I translated, I think I was able to translate the essence of what was being said, right, from their hearts. And then I get a call in February. The elders want to see me. People want to see me in February, and I said, "Oh, this is great. They're probably going to give me some money so I can do this stuff." And I get there and I get into the room, and the guy says, "You want to be the chief?" In March, I was the chief.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I became a chief.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things I found out being a chief, because of my ability to speak, I was placed on all of the national committees, AFN, AMC, right?
Yeah.
I remember one time, one of the chiefs got word that there was another suicide in the community. It was one of our northern communities. I won't say which one it is.
Yeah.
And what chiefs do is they get up and they talk, right? So everybody's talking about blame, right? And then it came to me, and I said, I agree that these people helped put us in the situation, right? But let's ask ourselves why that person didn't want to grow up. Why that person didn't want to grow up and be a part of the community.
Yeah.
And I said, well, maybe that person didn't want to be like us.
Yeah.
So maybe we got to fix us to help fix our children.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it got to me. It got to me. So I stepped down.
What like? I mean, you mentioned a couple of things, and did you not have you didn't enjoy your time, obviously, as a chief?
No, I did. I
Okay.
did. But it's a losing battle.
It is.
It's a losing battle.
Yeah.
Because your job as a chief is to make your things better for your people, right?
Yeah.
And if what you're doing is not making things better for your people, then change what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I got one last question, and it has to do with truth and reconciliation. Why is the process of truth and reconciliation important for all Canadians to be part of? And what is your hope for the future generations? I'm talking about Indigenous people here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I a lot of my thinking comes from my grandparents and people that grew up with them, right? And how they viewed the world, right? If you don't understand the history of the people you live with, you're going to continue to make a lot of dangerous mistakes. So this country was made with lies and violence. They stole our land. They lied about treaties. They stole our land, right? They tried to they had no intention of making us into citizens. What they were going to do is make us into third-class citizens, right? But they had no intention of putting us on equal footing, because that wasn't the mentality of the Victorian colonialists, right? So people today, our young people are brilliant. They're so good. They're so open. I love our young people today. I'm talking about Indigenous, non-Indigenous. They're just wonderful, right? They have this, they have this world where they seem to accept everything. Now, I'm not saying bad things. I'm saying who a person is, they accept that, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to find out more about Indigenous people too.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is we need to uncover that ugly, pus-filled box that created Canada so that it can heal. And truth and reconciliation will do that. We've got to open that box so that we ourselves can say, listen, that's what you did. That's what you did to my parents. That's what you did to my grandparents. I want you to witness that. And I want you to learn from that. Right? So they need to learn, and we need to learn what our parents and grandparents went through too. So it's going to be hard, but there's no other way. There's no other way around. There's no other way around making a country that's beautiful. In a video that I did a long time ago when I was a chief, somebody asked me about, do you think people know what happened to us in the past? I said, I don't think so. We got to go teach them. Because if they do know what happened to us in the past and they're doing nothing, then we're lost.
Thank you, Mike Lawrenchuk. We've been talking to Mike Lawrenchuk from Fox Lake Cree Nation. He's an actor, the former chief. He's been in a bunch of movies, most notably, I guess, Indian Horse is probably the most well-known one. Arctic Blue, On Thin Ice, Cowboys and Indians, Road of Iniquity, Outside the Sweat Lodge, Medicine River, Girl Who Married a Ghost, Society's Child.
Instead of reading that stuff off, say, just Google them.
Just Google Mike Lawrenchuk.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you very much for
I
doing
guess
this
it
and,
might.
taking the time to do this for us with us. And be great.
Yeah.
Kisagi din.
Oh, Kisagi din ista.
Last week in this day.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay.
We thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Roots and Hoots is a podcast project produced by the Legacy of Hope Foundation. For episode show notes, please visit the podcast description and make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. For more information about the work we do, please visit legacyofhope.ca.